Hey everyone, I'm Ian Douglas, the author of the website techinterview.guide. I do live streams every Sunday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern about topics relevant to interview preparation for the tech industry. I occasionally record longer Q&A sessions, and I've started to break those into smaller videos to post. And there'll be information at the end of this video about how to get in contact with me if you have additional questions. Let's get to it. What's the timetable of ghosting from a company? I didn't hear from them for 4 days now after a second interview. I did email them a follow-up, but no reply. The kind of the follow-up similar question that I got said, I reached out to somebody for an introduction and they never replied. Should I ask again or find someone else? So it really comes down to I'm trying to network. I'm trying to get feedback. I'm trying to find out what's going on and nobody's writing me back. What do I do? And this is a pretty common theme. There's been a bunch of stuff on LinkedIn recently. Martin McGovern just did a podcast with someone where they were talking about ghosting in an interview process. And that whole ghosting thing is basically where you get an interview and then they just never call you back. Like you get no feedback, no phone call, just nothing. They just kind of disappear into the ether. And it's really discouraging for us as developers to spend the time and the energy mentally and physically to prepare for these interviews and then not move forward, but then not be told we're not moving forward and not being told any feedback as to why. It's very discouraging, and it leads to a lot of anxiety and self-doubt and things like that, and companies need to knock it off. I think companies need to respect the fact that, you know, as candidates, you're putting in a lot of effort to prepare for these interviews. And if they're not going to progress with you through the interview, they need to give you a reason why. So when it comes to these two questions, so the first one was like, I didn't hear back from a company after my second interview. I emailed them a follow-up. I would probably start by asking this person in response, like, how long did you wait before emailing them that follow-up? And so kind of the guideline that I tend to coach people is, whatever the last day of that interview was, like send them a thank you and say, hey, thanks, really appreciate the time everybody took. Like send them a note of gratitude. I always recommend, like always send somebody some gratitude when they do something for you. So whether it's an interview or just a networking kind of thing or a virtual coffee, like whatever it is, send them a thank you. And then start counting down how many days. And I would say, wait maybe a week, especially if it's been an interview and they haven't gotten back to you. I would say within a week, email them back and say, hey, it's been a week. And again, you have to word this in a respectful way. You don't want to sound demanding or entitled or anything like that. But you can email them and say, hey, it's been a week since that interview. I'm really curious about feedback and next steps. I'm still super interested in the job. I would really love to hear some feedback from you about what the next steps are going to be. And then I would wait a couple of more days. I would probably wait maybe 3 days at most before following up one last time to say, hey, I'm still looking for feedback. I'd still like to know what's going on. Now, when you send that first email like a week later, not the thank you, but like the follow-up a week later, it is possible that recruiters are just slammed. They're really busy. They're going through tons of screenings and tons of interviews, and it could just be that they're busy. And so you send that email a week later. If you don't get a response, it could just mean that they're busy. If you send another response within a couple of days of that, it's going to kind of, you know, sit in their mind like, oh shoot, I really meant to get back to Ian, you know, on Monday when he sent me that email. Now it's Thursday and he's like following up again. I'm going to sit down right now and just write out a quick little note. There was a piece of productivity advice that I heard a long time ago that said, if you have like a whole list of things to do and something's only going to take like 5 minutes, do that first. Like just get all the really fast stuff out of the way. And I think that if a recruiter follows that same kind of advice, they're going to realize like, you know what, writing Ian this email message is going to take me like 5 minutes. I'm just going to do that right now. If they don't do it when you send that first message like a week later, when you send that message 2 or 3 days after that, you're going to be like, shoot, I meant to do that. I'm going to do it right now. It's only going to take a minute just to give them kind of a heads up on what's going on of either like, yes, we're moving forward or no, we're not. And you know, what those next steps are going to be. And so the timing of that will vary a little bit by company. It is super disappointing though, if it's been a long time and you try to follow up and you just get zero response. I think that that's a major sign of disrespect from the company. And if they're doing that to candidates, what are they doing to their own employees? Like, as a candidate, they should be trying to win you over and convince you that, they're a great company to work at. And if they're treating you that way, what are they going to treat you like as an employee? How much respect are they going to give you as an employee? So some food for thought there. The second part of the question was kind of along a similar vein, and I would say that the advice is probably a little bit similar. They're basically saying, I reached out to somebody for an intro. So I'm trying to do my networking, and I sent an intro and they never responded. Should I ask again, or should I find someone else at the company? My follow-up question to this is, well, how did you try to reach out? Was it over email? Was it over LinkedIn? Was it through meetup.com? Like, there's so many different ways that you could try to find folks. And not everybody checks all the channels all the time. For me, for example, like years ago, LinkedIn probably would have been the worst place to try to reach me because I was getting hounded by recruiters all the time on LinkedIn. And so I think I actually had a filter in my Gmail that just sent all LinkedIn notices to the trash for a while, just because most of it was just recruiters anyway. And I would occasionally log in just to see if there was like a legit question in there from somebody, or somebody actually wanted to connect, for like proper networking reasons. But it was probably the worst way to try to reach out to me. Nowadays, LinkedIn's probably the number one way to reach me. So if you're trying to find me, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm paying attention to that like probably at least every day. And so it could just be that the communication avenue that you're using is just not something that they're used to checking. And that could be email or, whatever site that you're emailing them through, social media, or like sort of industry social media like LinkedIn. And so I guess the same kind of thing applies. Like, how long should you wait before trying to follow up and meet them again? I would send them one more message and say, hey, I'm still really interested in networking. I've got some specific questions that I want to ask you about the company. So again, this should tie into the kind of the company research of, what is it that you're trying to learn about the company, and how are you presenting those questions to the person that you're trying to network with? And again, if you don't get a response right away, you could maybe give them like another week. But I would say like usually 3 messages, like 3 attempts of contacting them is probably like bordering on too many. Like 1 is good, 2 is like, okay, if they don't respond to that, you could maybe throw out a 3rd one saying like, hey, I'm still around. If you ever want to connect, I'm more than happy to chat. But at that point, I would probably just find somebody else to network with. And so what I would generally recommend is, if there's a company where you're interested, try to find at least 2 people who are sort of peer level. So if you're an entry-level dev, find 2 more entry-level devs that work at that company. If you're a senior-level dev, find a senior-level dev. And then find someone else even more senior than your role and try to network with them. And if possible, if the company is big enough that there are several more senior people, try to network with some of them. And lean on them a little bit for mentorship and ideas and things like that. But yeah, again, like, you're asking somebody for their time. And so you don't want to write them a big giant message and be like, here's 50 questions that I want to ask you. Just ask them like a single question. And if they respond, now you've got that open channel and you can say, cool, hey, have you got time for like a Zoom call or a Google Meet call? I really want to chat a little bit more about your company, and I'd love to ask you like some specific questions about the engineering team or the engineering culture. If you got like 10 minutes, could we do a 10-minute call? And keep it at 10 minutes unless they say like, hey, I've got extra time if you want to chat. Otherwise, cap it and say, hey, I want to be respectful of your time. I appreciate that 10 minutes. Thanks. Could we do another call in like a week if I have more questions? And see what they say. You don't want to like hound them and call them every single day. But I think following up on those kinds of calls is important, and just building up that rapport and sort of professional relationship with people. Hey, thanks for watching. I love helping people out with interview prep, and I hope this video helped you in some way. If you found this Q&A useful, please consider subscribing. You can follow me on Twitch as well for the live stream twice a week. Check out techinterview.guide/streaming for more information. I also have a daily email series that you can subscribe to on the website. There are never any ads, and when you finish the series, I scrub your information out of my database permanently. Finally, if you have a question that you'd like answered on the stream, you can find my contact info on techinterview.guide. I prefer LinkedIn or email. If you leave your question in a YouTube comment, it might take me longer to find it. But I'll see you next time.